Welcome back to the discussion Zero Trust in Complex Cybersecurity Environments, sponsored by Akamai on Federal News Network. My guests today are Brigadier General Chad Radigi, the Director of Cyberspace and Information Dominance and Chief Information Officer at U.S. Air Combat Command for the U.S. Air Force. I'm your moderator, Scott Massioni. And General, I wanted to ask a little bit more about what you're doing at ACC. So first of all, you're talking about making ACC a zero trust environment. You also work within a larger Air Force. Now, if that larger Air Force does not have zero trust or is not where you are, is that an issue for you? How does it work if, like many people say, you are your weakest link? If, some other command does not have zero trust, is that an issue for you? And then also, when do you see zero trust really launching off in full speed ahead mode for you?
So, Scott, I think you make an important point and one that I would like to circle back on. In the last portion or the last question and answer environment, we talked about what steps we had taken. And so part one was building the coalition. And so, yes, you are correct. And Air Combat Command is a component of the broader United States Air Force or Department of the Air Force. But I think an important point is that we are the lead command for enterprise IT. And so as such, when we have built the coalition environment, the unity of effort approach, we have looped in the Pentagon policymakers and the operators that are responsible for all of the activities on our Department of the Air Force AppNet. So while we're taking some efforts in ACC, we're doing that on behalf of the entire United States Air Force. And so we are all moving in formation together to build out a zero trust environment. So you asked the question of what are we doing today? And I think there's a number of activities that I've kind of described. I will foot stomp that we're actually piloting an effort right now. We have envisioned a software-defined perimeter. We are actually accessing services through what we call the Cloud Native Access Point, CNAP, and that is allowing us to build in zero trust principles such as user and device validation to access our data. All of that pilot effort is ongoing right now, and we have red team operators that are trying to break that and see if there are any vulnerable access points from there. And we're making adjustments. We're learning as we go. The second is I will tell you that because of our role as lead command, we have taken a leadership role in thinking through the next steps. So not only are we rolling out the pilot effort now, but we're trying to think about the broader implications as we move forward. So here are some things that are underway right now. As charged by Lieutenant General Chris Wegeman, our Deputy Commander of Air Combat Command. He has challenged us to think through defining what the implementation plan will look like. What does a zero trust architecture look like, and how do we document that so that we can build accordingly? What does the training pipeline look like? So we will have operators at 16th Air Force. We will have members at base level comm squadrons, all trying to understand what zero trust is all about. We have to make sure that they're trained accordingly and that they can access this new technology and protect our United States Air Force data. We are looking for opportunities to take the next step. So pilot effort right now at Tinker Air Force Base, as I kind of described, but what are the next pilot efforts that we're looking to do? We have a number of weapon systems that are out there that I think are ripe to bring in zero trust architecture and strategy and build it accordingly. So we're working through right now with senior leaders to identify those needs and those mission sets that we can go after. We're trying to make sure that we have unity of investments for zero trust. So I talked about as we maintain the current legacy environment, but as we put our eyes on building the future, we are looking for those key investments that we can say, before we start putting money and resources against that, let's make sure that it's going to be compliant with our zero trust architecture. And so all of those efforts are underway right now. Finally, I would tell you that we're also doing some analysis. Part of the pilot effort is to assess our current organizational alignments. Do we have the right operator mix? Do we have the right technology tools in place to get instantaneous feedback and pivot and make fast decisions to protect our network? And so some of that operational analysis is taking place right now, and we will use that information to inform any organizational realignments as we move forward.
Great. And you know, we already talked a little bit about what agency leaders and leaders can do to start implementing zero trust. Is there anything different within DoD? You know, DoD is always an animal of its own when it comes to these sort of things. Anything different DoD leaders can do to make their enterprise system zero trust, and maybe some lessons learned through your experience?
I think the good news for our Department of Defense right now is that we are all moving in a similar method right now, with U.S. Cyber Command asking for zero trust pilot efforts from each of the service components. So the Air Force has an approach to the way that we're doing business, but the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps are all doing their own examples and solution sets, piloting different things. I think that we will all learn from one another of what technologies work, what strategy works, what architecture is best fitting for the particular mission that we have. But I think we're all advancing together. I think for the Department of Defense, one of the limb facts that we have right now is that we don't have a lot of like organizations that have gone and instituted a zero trust strategy for their entire enterprise. There are certainly commercial vendors that have made the jump. They have aligned their resources. They have put the structure in place. But it seems like, you know, as DoD tries to learn from the commercial enterprise, it's always a little different. And so there is no checklist that we're running. We're experimenting, and we're running pretty fast right now. We're taking some risks. We understand that we will probably make some mistakes. The goal is to fail fast and to fail forward and not give up, to keep pushing it, to understand and to be a learning organization so that as we identify those flaws, that we quickly close them and adjust our architecture and our strategy accordingly, and then make sure that our operators are trained in the future to move forward. So I think those are some of the things that are going on right now, informing our way forward.
We've talked about all these great things about zero trust, how it's helping bring us into the next generation of IT. What are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the issues that we're dealing with still, and you know, how is it maybe still a vulnerability in ways?
Yeah, so I think I would circle back to answer that question by saying, you know, some of the same things that I just referenced, the no mistake methodology or the no mistake mindset. We have to get past that. We have to push really hard. We have to accept some failure, but learn from that failure. We have to recognize that there are some models that are out there that we can learn from, just not a lot of them in the DoD right now. And so we will have to adjust. I think the key pitfall that we have to keep pushing ourselves on is understanding that zero trust is not a destination. It is a journey that we're on. And so there really is no destination. We have to get into a mindset where we are going to pivot to this new methodology of accessing data, being, supporting mobile operations, being collaborative, being interoperable with all of the different networks that we have out there. We have to understand that that journey will describe us continually reinvesting, continually learning, continually re-architecting a bit to make sure that we keep up with the technologies. The one thing that we should know, the common pitfall, is to assume that we will get to a graduation moment and we will do a big ribbon cutting and we will declare success. And then from that point forward, we start failing because we are not continually assessing. So we have to continue to learn. One thing that we know is that our adversaries will continue to try and break in to our architectures. They will try and break in and get into our networks and see the data that we're making decisions on. And so we have to stay one step ahead of our adversaries, and that requires a learning organization.
We're going to pause here for a short break. I'd like to thank my first guest, Brigadier General Chad Radegui, the Director of Cyberspace and Information Dominance and Chief Information Officer at the headquarters of Air Combat Command for U.S. Air Force. Coming up next, I'll be joined by Jay Bonsi, the Director of Government Custom Engineering at Akamai. I'm your moderator, Scott Massioni, on the discussion Zero Trust in Complex Cybersecurity Environments, sponsored by Akamai on Federal News Network.